There are things in this world we cannot explain, something hidden just beyond our view. Journey with us as we attempt to pierce the veil between our world and theirs. Join us as we pass through the doorway to the dead.
Join us at WLFE-DB.com for upcoming shows and so much more.
Welcome in, everyone. It is Thursday, July 15th, 8 p.m. Eastern. I am Dave, one quarter of KSPS, Keystone State Paranormal Society, and this is Doorway to the Dead. Jim will be joining us in just a few minutes. He's actually outside of the Hoover House right now, finishing up a few things. It's very hot in this room. Tonight's guest, we have a good friend of ours that we originally met at the Gettysburg Battlefield Bash. He is an investigator. He is featured on the, I think this August 2021 issue of G Hunter magazine, and he is the head of the Heritage Hunter Society, Mr. Michael Chiana. So let's go ahead and bring him in. There he is. Welcome in, Michael. How are you? We can't hear you, Michael. We can't hear you, and it's very laggy, actually. Sorry, Mike. It's I can't hear anything you're saying, and you're very laggy. Mike, can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up if you can hear me, Mike. Okay, I can't hear you. Yeah, maybe if you leave and come back in, then maybe I'll be able to hear you. Maybe that'll fix the your internet connection. It's very laggy. Okay, we'll see if we can't get Michael back with a better internet connection. While we're waiting, I want to let everybody know here at the historic 1912 Hoover House, we have an event this Saturday with Paranormal Inc. Ernie and Dave Seiler will be coming up and doing an investigation of the building. So if anybody's in the area, contact Pam and see if there's any ticket space left available. I do not know if there is or not. Welcome in, everybody. Michelle Williams, Mike Simpson, Brian Stewart, Joanne Stewart, Sandy Springer. Welcome, everyone. Okay, let's see if this works better. Is that better, Mike? Nope. Still laggy, and I can't hear you. Are you on Wi-Fi or are you on connected? Oh, using your cell phone as a hotspot? Oh, this may, I don't know. Do you have better reception on your cell phone, maybe? Because you are completely locked up. Maybe if you go on your cell phone, connect that way. We'll keep trying to get him in. Mike, that depends. I have to talk to Ernie and Dave and see what's going on. They may be going live. We may go live. It really depends on, it's their investigation, so we don't want to take any of their shine away. So welcome in, Linda. Welcome in, Holly. Welcome in, Facebook user. Welcome in, Oh, I already said Sandy Springer. Okay, I thought it was someone else. My apologies. So yeah, get a hold of Pam to see if there's any space left for that investigation. And then at the 31st of this month, we have movie and investigation with Big Gene Snitsky of welcome in, Jason. Big Gene Snitsky, formerly of WWE. So he's going to be having his movie shown at the theater a couple blocks up, and then doing an investigation here. How's that, Mike?
How about now? Can you hear
now
me?
We're good. Now we can hear you.
Okay. Gotta use the cell phone.
Yep.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Michael. How about yourself?
Good to see you. I'm sorry you're so hot in that room.
Yeah, well, luckily I got a vent like just off camera right here, so I'm kind of leaning towards it to let it just blow on me. So, as a matter of fact, here, let me go ahead and do this so I'm not off center when I'm leaning over here by the vent.
There you go. That's the hot box right there, huh?
Oh, yeah, yep. I saved Jim from it. I let him stay down at the bar, and I stay up here. That way we don't have any interference and feedback on the mics.
Thanks for having me on tonight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been too long since we spoke, my friend.
Yeah, man.
How's things been going with the Heritage Hunter Society?
Oh, I've just been rocking and rolling with this series. It's taken me a while to put it together. This first episode has taken about over a year of filming and traveling and different things, and I've had to learn so much about editing. Like I said, I'm a plumber by trade, so what do I know about editing? Well, I had to learn everything. So I've gotten really well at it, and show should be out in probably next week or so. I just have to finish a few more hoops to jump through, and then it'll be on Prime TV.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And just to give a little teaser, what kind of locations are we going to look forward to for this first episode?
Well, everything with me is history. That's the Heritage Hunter. So this first episode is called the Country Squire Inn, and it's a very famous inn, restaurant, and winery here in North Carolina. It's been very active for many years. Staff, owners, guests have all experienced things. And so I started investigating there in 2010. And all the way through the years. And so we did about 11 investigations altogether, and we captured some phenomenal things. And that's what we're going to show on here. But it's also the history of the place and the interviews with the owner and the staff. To me, that's the most interesting parts. So it's a really great show. And there's phenomenal things. We caught some crazy stuff on a thermal video camera that's really unique. Two of our good friends. I work with a lot of different groups, and I always invite them to different places. And that's what I'm trying to show on this series, what I actually do in real life. And what I do in real life is I find really great investigators, and we all work together, and we travel around, and we hit different locations. And that's what the series is really about.
Fantastic. Well, are you going to be able to make it up for the bash?
Yes, I'm all booked, and I'm set to come. I'm bringing two of my friends. So, we're going to have a great time. Yeah, I've missed it. I haven't been there since 2016.
Yeah. Well, that's good because then you're going to get a chance to check this place out, I think.
That's right. I'll swing by and hang out. That's right. Hang out in the basement.
Oh, yeah. I
saw that picture.
Some of the pictures we've gotten from down there.
Oh, yeah. I saw that one that Pam caught recently. That was awesome. Yeah, that's what we try and shoot for, things like that,
Absolutely. One of the commenters, Jason Cottam, says, where can we find him? If you want to go ahead and plug your website or your Facebook page or whatever.
Oh, yeah, sure. Mike Chiana, Heritage Hunter Society on Facebook. I have several pages. Mike Chiana, you can find me. You can find me on Heritage Hunter Society. I own two other paranormal groups, North Carolina Ghost Society and Raleigh Paranormal Society. And I've run those for years. So all those different pages are out there on Facebook, and you can hit them, like them, and I love to talk to people, and I love to share experiences. That's what we all really like to do. I love to hear people's experiences just as much as sharing my own.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's all about networking and
Oh, yeah.
sharing your stories with people and listening to theirs and finding common ground and really just diving into the meat and grits of the other side of the veil, so to speak.
Oh yeah, it's fascinating. The paranormal's fascinating, but also meeting so many different unique people is what I love. Because when I first started doing this publicly, was around 2004, 2005, and there were very few groups out there, and even the internet wasn't that big yet, and so I liked to meet different people and travel and stuff like that. So I've been around the world, and everywhere I've gone, people have shared their ghost stories with me. Staffers or people of hotels, restaurants, different things. So everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story. And anybody that doesn't believe, I feel very sorry for people that don't believe, and that's their own problems and their own issues. There's more out there in this world than us, and so.
Well, I mean, and you've got skepticism to a point is actually encouraged. It's actually encouraged because we want to be able to debunk as much as we can. So that way, when you come across that one thing that you absolutely cannot figure out how to recreate, then you've got something legitimate, and then you've got something that you can share with everybody else, and you won't have to worry about it coming back as, oh, this was fake.
Right.
You don't have to worry about any of that.
Well, I always say that 99% of what's out there is not paranormal, and 1% is, and I'm always searching for that 1%. And if you do this long enough, then you know how to sift through things. And like I said, it's true. About 99% of it is not real. It's matrixing. It's with cameras and stuff. There's so many false positives, video cameras. So you really have to learn. I always tell people you got to learn your craft. Come in this field. Forget about TV shows. Forget about that. Learn, like any other trade. Learn your craft.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you're getting into this field to find fame and fortune, that means one of two things: either you've made a bad career choice, or you got into it with no integrity to begin with. So
and then you can fake things, and you can still be famous for nothing.
Right. And I think
there's plenty of them out there.
Oh yeah, and as well as I do. I'm sure it's happened to you several times. Jim and I have been offered opportunities for different shows here and there, and we've turned them down because we would have no creative control. We'd have no control over editing. They would want us to embellish, and we're not going to do that because you may be the producer and you may be the editor, but at the end of the day, the name people are going to see on that fake thing is ours, and we're not having that. So
well, I was in the same situation. Companies and production companies all around the world were always contacting me and feeding me their lines of crap. And I got to the point where I don't like many of the productions that are out there. There's a few that are really good. Love John Zaffis and all the stuff he's done, and there's a few folks that are really passionate and. But even him, he had his hands tied with a lot of things. Production. That's what made me decide to create my own show. That way, nobody could tell me what to do, and I can. I had to learn how to. I had to go out and buy all this equipment. I had to learn how to use it, learn how to edit, learn how to film. I've been making films since I'm in high school, so I have a good background with films and different things like that. But to do a series that's going to be quality and to be on prime TV that goes around the world, it had to be something really good, and different. Mine is definitely different. It's documentary form, and it's real. Everything on it's real. The people are real. All the investigators are real. There's no actors, and that's just what I like, and going to continue to do that.
It looks like Jim just joined the comments, but I don't see him in the waiting room here. Let me see. Hold on.
He's hanging out at the bar. That's why.
Looks like he didn't click on the link. He just went to the live. See, I love Jim to death, but he is what's the polite way to put it? Technologically inhibited is, I guess, the polite way to put it. So while he probably just clicked on Facebook on the live, for him to get in like I am with you, he'd need to click on the StreamYard link that I sent him, just like I sent you. So, Jim, if you can hear me talking, if you're watching the live stream, go to your email, find the link I sent you, click on it. It'll put you in the waiting room, and I'll bring you in. So, one of the things.
So how new is?
What's that?
How new is this this streaming that you're doing now? Because this is really great. It's such an upgrade from your other shows.
This is episode 7.
Right. This is awesome.
So this is our 7th week doing it, and we want to thank WLFE and Ted Van Son for having us in and allowing us to be part of their station. They have some really great shows on the station. Ted works tirelessly, so it's while we wanted to thank Alive Paranormal for what they offered us while we were with them, and we hold no ill will towards them. I hope they understand that. This was just a better opportunity for us right now, and we were able to do a lot more things this way than we were before. So
this is great.
Like, for example, if you had sent me a video clip, I could hit share and then hit video file and play it. So I couldn't do that before.
Right. We'll definitely do that in the future. I have some good clips for you.
So
that's awesome.
I noticed one of the things that is part of your passion in this whole thing, like you said, obviously with the Heritage Hunters, is the history. Obviously, Gettysburg is an entity all its own, but
sure is.
I'm trying to think what would be one of the places that I definitely want to get to is on my bucket list, and I know it's on Pam's as well, is the Villisca Axe Murder House. And even if there was no paranormal activity at that location, just the history, the unsolved true crime nature of it, that really sparks my interest.
Yeah, definitely.
So when you first started doing this, and you knew that you wanted to have history as a main part of what you did, was there a certain place that inspired that, or have you just been a history buff pretty much all your life?
My grandparents used to take me everywhere when I was a kid. Every weekend they were taking me to historical places, and I think that's how I really got into it. Oh, there he is!
There he is! Oh, there he is!
Oh, Jim! Oh, there he is! Oh, Jim!
Now, Jim, you have to close out your Facebook. So that's where that feedback.
What's that now?
Close out your Facebook. That's where the feedback's coming from.
I have to close something.
Facebook.
Oh, close Facebook. Gotcha.
That's why we're hearing feedback.
There.
Oh, there we go.
All right. I'll tell you, I come off the porch and I'm trying to enter and I'm like having a seizure. I mean, I can't control my hands to punch. I don't know what that was about. I'm like, God, that was weird. But anyhow, I'm coming in control now.
So back to that question, Mike. Was there a place that sparked your interest history-wise before the paranormal even became a part of it, or did you just know when you did one, you wanted the other to be a part of it?
When I first started doing the paranormal, I was actually going to when I first moved to North Carolina, I was going to a lot of historical places. Am I there? Here I am.
Yeah, we're here. We're good.
I started having paranormal activity while I was at these historical locations, and that's what led me to want to combine the two. And the first place I wanted to go was Mount Vernon, George Washington's home. And I just had a fascination. And then I did go to, I went to Mount Vernon, didn't have any experiences.
And we lost Michael.
Hello.
There he goes. He just froze up for a minute.
I went back. I went to Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home, about a year or so ago. I had never been there. And if I go on a tour during the day, I'll always stay in the back of the line. So as people are going through the different rooms, I'll just lag behind. That's what I do. And I asked permission if I could record. And they kind of, what do you want to record for? I said, well, I'm a history nut, and I just want to record everything you're saying. So they let me. Little did I know I was doing recordings. But so I was in Thomas Jefferson's bedroom where he had passed away. And everybody had left the room. I was standing there, and I looked down at his actual boots that were standing right next to the bed. And I said, Thomas, are you here? Into my recorder. And I got this loud bang right under my feet, like a sledgehammer. Like somebody took a sledgehammer and smashed the ground. And I was like, wow. So that was pretty wild. And so I went downstairs right afterwards to see what was in that area. And there was a wine cellar area that was roped off. And so nobody was in that area. So nobody could have created that noise from below. So pretty wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, with Mount Vernon, I know that some of the security, I talked to them before, and they supposedly on that one back side hear boots like late in the evening or at night. Yeah. They'll hear boots going up and down a set of stairs back there when they know there's no one back there.
Yeah. But they don't like to disclose that. They don't want people coming in there and doing what we do. So that's always been my biggest challenge with historical places, other than Gettysburg. When I went to Gettysburg, man, it was like open season.
We had a friend years ago who was I guess you're a jack of many trades. He was I guess historic carpentry. In other words, he was working on these various historic homes, keeping them up, restoring them. And he was in James Buchanan's house. I think it's called Wheatfields up in the Lancaster area. And it would only be him at night. And he, for years, was trying to get permission from the owners, because it's a private consortium that owns Wheatfields, to get permission to be able to do an investigation there, but with no success. But he would be up there working at night, knowing he's the only one there. And hell, all kind of stuff's going on. And there was even arguments going on.
Oh, yeah, definitely. That's what I do. I work in historical homes, as a plumbing contractor.
That's what I thought.
For many years, I've worked in the historical districts here in Raleigh, and that's why I named my company Heritage Plumbing Company. So I like to use the word heritage a lot.
Wow.
But I've had all kinds of experiences while working in the homes, and the homeowners were open to, what was going on. So, yeah, always really interesting things. I love it. I mean, what better to do your full-time profession and then have paranormal activity happen at the same time.
Well, the one thing, again, I apologize for being late. I mistimed myself. We're working on this massive deck of ours here, and nice. So yeah, we're trying to. I really have an appreciation for these old places now, being on the receiving end. But
I'm so glad you guys got this home. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I think it's really special. But anyhow, I mistimed myself. So, but I wanted to just tell the audience that about you. I said Michael is like you're a stickler. You're really, you're really great. You narrow everything down, the possibilities. You're always in the forefront, trying to offer an explanation, a rational explanation for something that you observed or picked up, and real stickler for detail. So, there's a number of people out there, and you're definitely one of them, that when you post some evidence or something like that, I know the painstaking checks and all that have gone through to be able to gone through your filters to be in the end position. So, I can really appreciate that kind of evidence. And, you're not
using my my mechanical background. That's really, doing mechanical work for over 36 years. That just, comes second nature when I'm on investigation, because, I've done boiler work, I've done electrical work, I've done carpentry, I've done plumbing. And so, you really have to debunk the homes first. And like everybody loves to use the little K2 meters for different things. K2 is good for one thing. It's good for one thing, is to walk the house, check the electrical system with it, see what's bleeding, and then put it away. That's what I do. That's the best way to see what is, electrically, bleeding off the panel.
I use a Trifield. When we come in, I'll take the Trifield and scan through. Of course, it measures, all the various potential energies, and and sometimes we uncover, say, like wiring or something like that that's producing quite measurable current. But sometimes that basically can act as like fuel for the paranormal. So, we don't necessarily just discount something because we're picking up that field, but we sort of can isolate to an area. And then later, I know there was a historic home in the Patapsco area, Baltimore. And this particular house was just a couple blocks from the Baltimore massacre of the Civil War period, where the Massachusetts guys had to get off the train and the local residents were there. And sure enough, this is broad daylight. The wiring was creating energy fields. Okay, so we took that into account. But what we couldn't really credit for that, it would be like an energy ball in the room midday, and you could actually pick it up on film. You could pick it up using thermal imaging. You could pick it up from a variety of things. And even though you have energy from the wiring or whatever, couldn't really explain why there's a rotating and altering energy field in the middle of the room.
I've experienced that. We did it back in 2006. We were invited into a home. The people were renting the home, and they found us through an ad or something, and they were moving out, and all they wanted us to do was come in and whatever was there, keep it there. And I was like, really? I said, this is like a scam. I said, they're trying to break the lease and they're trying to use the paranormal, I think. So they moved out. They were throwing everything they could in this U-Haul, and they were scared. They were scared beyond belief. And they left, and they said, whatever you find, don't contact us. We don't want to know. So we had this home. It was only 2 years old. This home was pretty well brand new. And we investigated, and right off the bat, like you said, I started doing some readings, and I was getting super high readings in the middle of the living room. So I said, all right, I'm going to go kill the power to the house. I did that. And then we were still getting high readings. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. There's no power on the house. And that night, Jim, I captured a photo that is a mass explosion. We're standing there, and you can barely see us, and there's an explosion in the room. And somebody, we don't even know who took the picture, but somebody caught it. And it almost looks like a snake. This thing is about 2 inches thick, and it's about 4 or 5 feet long, and it's whizzing away from us, zooming away in the middle of this explosion. So when I come up to the bash, I will bring that, and I will show that to you.
It's interesting.
Pictures I've ever seen.
It's interesting the way you describe that, because I was just talking to a gentleman who was here at the house a week ago, and a week or two ago, and he was explaining he had been doing tours, very experienced, been most of the bucket list places, and he was doing tours at Allegheny. And he explained the one, we were talking because a lot of people have told us about like extreme negative activity up there. And he described this one area that many others had to me as well. And he explained the same thing, that they actually caught above one of the dooryards, a serpent-like, and very similar. He said it was like 3 or 4 feet long, very thick, almost like I guess a boa constrictor with a thickness.
Right.
But, there is no snake there. There wasn't, but they picked it up on imaging as well. And I've heard that representation now 4 or 5 times from people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's amazing. Wow. It's rare, but when you catch it, and when you see this photo, you're going to be, and this was taken with no flash. This was IR only, IR throw off of a Canon camera years ago. And like I said, so there was no flash photography. And this thing, I'm standing in the middle of it, and you could just see my arm, and it looks like somebody took a stick of dynamite and threw it in the middle, and it exploded in this white light. It was all around us, and then this thing is zooming away from us at the same time. So,
now, did you perceive any light with your own eyes, or this came up?
We didn't see a thing. We were in the dark. We had the kitchen light on in the back room, so we had just a little bit of light coming from the kitchen, but we were in the living room. The house was completely empty. There's no furniture. And we were standing there, and I said, somebody take a picture, because the meter was going crazy. And just as they did, that's what we captured. But when I saw that photo, we were blown away.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the best photos I will ever see as far as for energy.
Wow.
Crazy.
I wonder, just for, I really don't have any guidance on that. I oftentimes wonder why the representation of a serpent or something like that, if there's some biblical connection to all that.
I think it's the energy of the spirits that were there, because that same night, 2 different times in the night, I went in the corner like a kid being punished. I went in the corner. Everybody else was off to the side, and I just put the recorder up, and I was standing facing the corner, and I just said, "Tell me your name." Famous question, right? And I have 2 women, crystal clear, at 2 different times, telling me their first and last name. So super clear. And I was like, that energy had to be them. It had to be them. So this was a property that was an old farm, old plantation. And then, of course, they came in and built all these subdivisions. And so I definitely believe it's tied to the land. And because anybody that always says, oh, well, a house that's 2 years old, it's not haunted. Well, that changed my whole point of view. And I said, well, it has nothing to do with the home. It's the property. And crystal clear. So, yeah, amazing. And it's very rare to get a first and last name. You know that.
Sure. Yeah.
And one was a Lee Bloom.
That's
her first name was.
Perceptions about the paranormal is that when you go to a location, it's that house or that store or that asylum is haunted. And that's not always the case. Sometimes it is the land. Sometimes it's let's like you guys were talking earlier about the say, for example, faulty wiring that's giving off a high EMF. Sometimes there's just spirits or energies in the general vicinity, or maybe neighboring properties, that feel that energy and come to it. So this location in specific may not be quote unquote haunted, but the area is, and they just congregate there because that's where there's an abundance of energy for them to feed on.
And also us, many of us who have done this for many years, and we have a really good vibration, and we're very good at what we do. They are drawn to us too, and it seems like everywhere I go, I always have very good success. And that has to do with our personalities and how we approach respect, things like that. And also that these spirits want to talk to somebody. They're lonely. They're, many people can't communicate with them. So when they see somebody that comes into a location that is friendly and talking directly to them, they're like, hey, wow, this person could hear me, you see me.
Yeah, it's like you can hear me, you can see me. Oh,
So
we've got
really
I've got
the best way I approach.
Yeah, well, and you're so dead on. There's a number of people I've been privileged to know and work with, and I know they present an aura or the energy read that spirit gets off of them, and they know they can trust them. They know that they're open for real communication and not, like,
right.
Hey, are you there? Something like that.
Yeah. It's I hate to say it, but in our field we have a lot of issues. And I'm not the paranormal police. I don't go around telling people what to do. But I just have learned over the years. When I started, I would work with anybody, and now I don't do that anymore. Now I only work with core people, and I only work with people that are seasoned and people that are, really passionate about what we do. It's not about thrills. This is not about thrills.
Let me ask you a question. Do you live on like a farm? Am I correct? Or you just have a farm?
I own a farm in Tennessee, Eastern Tennessee.
Okay.
And it's very active. It's very haunted. I've had it since 2006, and I've had all kinds of things happen there. I've gotten recordings, and I've seen things. And it sits almost at the top of the mountain. So the granite and the quartz and everything that's in that ground, it's definitely paranormal, central. I have a lot of spirits coming and going. I've had a lot of family members who passed away. They've shown up there, and I've gotten them on recordings. My father-in-law, my brother who passed away over the years. So to me, that's wild. That is wild that family members. But I get other people too that come by, and I don't know who they are. Very interesting. Yeah.
My question about that though is, and it's something I worry here at the Hoover House, because Pam and Steve are the host and hostess here and living here, and I just worry about the constant exposure of spirit, even if it's a higher vibrational energy and all that.
Right.
I worry about that constant exposure. I
wouldn't worry about it. Because when I first bought my place in 2006, it was very unnerving because things would, startle me at 2:00 in the morning, or I'd be laying in bed and somebody would scream in my ear my name, and wake me up, and things like that. So they were messing with me for a while. Now, all these years later, it's very peaceful. I guess I got to the point where I'm like, screw you, I'm going to bed, leave me alone. And so I think they're very tired of me. But when I do bring guests there, the activity spikes right up. So It's always interesting. Yeah. But, Bam and Steve have been doing this a long time. And I think that they're so used to it too. So
yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's a good thing that Jim chose business partners that were so experienced and have been doing this for so long that they obviously know their own limitations. And, part of it, the good part too, is that with them having the Gettysburg Ghost Exchange, they can get out of the house for, 6, 7, 8 hours a day and go into the store and kind of recharge their energies and let this place do what it does. And, get away from it.
But yeah, they're used to it. They've had the other home that you all worked in, and it's just something. There's so many people I know that own haunted locations, and they're fine, and they don't have any issues. It's more like extended family. That's how I look at it.
We're trying
nothing negative.
We're trying to keep a log, of like some of the more notable events and just, so we actually are, I guess, constantly trying to gather data. But of course, I'm constantly behind the 8 ball because turn around, I'm a week or two behind.
Have you had a lot of guests stay there so far?
We really have. Yeah, we're
okay. So what you should do is make a ghost book for your guests and keep it downstairs in an area, and then as people have experiences, they can write their experiences in the book.
Actually, I think Pam's put one of those in each of the bedrooms, I think.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
That's really good to do. Yeah, because I've gone to many hotels that have had the same ghost books, ghost logs.
Really?
And it's real. Oh yeah. So yeah, it's definitely worth doing because people will be honest and genuine about what they've experienced, and then you can go through and read and see if people have had similar experiences, different experiences, which rooms they had experiences in. So I always find that to be interesting.
Yeah,
well,
and
my
we encourage them to when they write these things down, we encourage them to get as much detail. What time was it? What room was it? What were you doing when it happened? And see if one is the same time frame, the same door, same room, and if different people were doing similar things when these things happen. And maybe it's something like that triggers it. Or like I said, if it's the same time, maybe it's just a residual event that's going to happen whether we're in the room or not.
Right. Now, I got a question for you guys. How much residual have you experienced over the years?
Honestly, and this, at least in my opinion, I think it's opposite the way it should be. I would expect, if I was on the outside looking in, I would expect there to be a lot more residual hauntings than intelligent. And I don't know if it goes to show our team chemistry or our inner chemistry with each other and with ourselves. But I would probably say it's 70 from over 20 some years that Jim and I have been doing this. I would say like 70% of it has been intelligent, maybe 30% of it's been residual.
Right.
I think it's been almost probably pretty rare, but I just think that the way we approach
I have not come across a lot of residual in all my years of doing this. A lot of it's been intelligent, and because they're saying my name, they're giving me responses to the locations that we're at. Most residuals, you don't get EVPs either. It's more of a visual thing, or a photograph or something. So I always found that interesting for me.
I think
that I didn't
when you said residual, I think, and I do think this was residual, but I thought it was really neat. When we used to cut our teeth on the field at Gettysburg, we were up at Copes Hill, and we were in the area where General Greene had dug entrenchments and it, stackpiled the logs.
The earthworks.
Yep, up top of the hill. And so the earthworks, I mean, it's not much to speak of. It's barely looks like a trail. But we had one of those old sunny night cams, and I had it set up shooting down the trail, and we had it running up there while we were in other areas, doing our thing. Yeah. And when I processed that, I got about a 30-second clip where you hear them digging. You hear it's obviously digging. You hear a dog barking, and there were no dogs around, and you hear them whistling. The old whistle while you work. And it was a good 30 seconds, that clip. We have it. And I thought that was the coolest thing. Now,
it could be residual.
Yeah.
It could be residual, and it could be you might have captured an event where they were actually working, because I do believe that a lot of spirits are in their times, they're in their time and we're in ours, as far as realms and things like that. And because I've come across a lot of things like that. So it's very interesting, right? I mean, I love Gettysburg. I've had more experiences in the town of Gettysburg and at different inns than actually on the battlefield. Have you ever heard the story of the Blue Boy ghost on Gettysburg campus? Okay, I was taking a tour the first time I ever went. First time I ever went to Gettysburg, I took Mark Nesbitt's tour, and he had this really great tour guide, Amanda, and she was in a full garb dress, and we walked all over, and we went over to Gettysburg campus, and I had my full spectrum camera with me, and she was talking about the Blue Boy ghost, and just as she did, I snapped a few shots, and I looked to her right, and there's this massive blue image in the dark. This is in the evening time, so this was not a reflection off of anything. and I caught this blue thing right next to her. And I said, "Excuse me." I said, "Can I show you this?" And I showed the entire group, and everybody flipped out. And they were like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
So that was interesting. And that was 2011. So, yeah, that's why I believe the Gettysburg campus is a really great place to visit and wander around at night.
That's really cool.
You know where Mark Nosovitch's store is, correct?
Yes, I've been there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the back of that is now where the Gettysburg Ghost Exchange is.
Right. Yes.
And Kayla Miner and her husband Eric, they live above, and that place is very active. Jim and I were asked to come over, be guests there and investigate with Kayla, and we got Mrs. Kitzmiller. We got spirits that were out in the yard that were supposed to be out on guard, and she didn't let them come in. And actually, we went back in their bedroom, and through the Phasma box, I had about a 5 or 10 minute conversation with Mr. Kitzmiller about beer and bourbon.
Like, I always find alcohol is a great subject.
What was his favorite alcohol? And he would say bourbon, and I was like, do you like single malt? Do you like whiskey? And he said, I believe he said Wild Turkey or something like that. Like, he gave the name of an actual whiskey. And then I said, I prefer rum and Guinness. And he said, then the next word that came out was stout.
Stout,
like, of course, stout. And I was like, you guys can leave. We can just sit here all night and talk about this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That plasma box is pretty amazing. I'm not a big fan of the other type of, the shack hacks and things like that. I don't like that static noise. But the plasma thing is, I have, and I experimented with it years ago, and I just put it away. I said, this is, even if it is evidence, it's not evidence I want. Because I want really clean, clear, quiet EVPs. And, I'm very selective on what I want, which most people aren't. They're just trying to get anything. Well, I've been doing this so many years now. I want really, and that's why I've gone out and spent the most money I could on really good digital recorders, like, $300, $400, $500, because I really want high-end gear that's going to catch some really interesting things. So
and now Jim and I don't like the SB711 because that gives me a headache. I don't like it. But I will say, the very first year we were at the Bash and we had the Thaddeus Stevens log cabin, we had Rob and Nikki from Live Paranormal over. And speaking of very good digital recorders, that was the first year Jim had bought his Tascam. And
love them.
So he's sitting at the I guess what's the dining room with the table, and he's on the computer, he's doing things, and I'm cooking dinner because I'm making dinner for everybody. And this thought comes across my mind, like, we've never investigated this place. We've invited people from out of state to come and investigate. What if this is bunk? What if there's nothing here, And so that came in my mind. So I went and said something to Jim. Now I've got a roast cooking in the rotisserie after I'd put the seasons on the rub and all this. So I said to Jim, and he's recording this whole conversation on his Tascam. And he's like, well, if nothing happens, then nothing happens. That's just the way it is. They're investigators. They'll understand. I said, okay. So he plays back his Tascam, and you hear our conversation. And after he says, if nothing happens, nothing happens. That's the way it goes sometimes. You hear me say, okay, and then you hear a female say, dinner smells great. Well, Jim and I were the only ones there. And I was like, oh, my God, we've got it. This is a gold mine, right? So
that's awesome,
They come that night to investigate.
And that's another thing is, like, I'm like Jim. I run my recorders from the time I get in there to the time I leave, because that's when I capture so many different things. I work with a lot of people that will just turn their recorder on for a session, and then they'll turn it off. And I'm like, my God, you're missing out on so much. You're probably missing out on 20 or 30 EVPs that, you could have captured during those times. So I don't know. And everybody has their own way of doing things. But
they come and investigate with us that night, and we're sitting in the front parlor. And Nikki and Jim are over to this side. I'm sitting in a chair here, and Rob's across from me. And Jim, Nikki, and myself all knew that Thaddeus Stevens had gone to college at Dartmouth. Rob did not know this. He's the one holding the SB7. And we're asking questions. And Jim he's got this weird thing where he can just kind of feel like, okay, the guy that we're looking for, I think, is here now. So he says, I really think Thaddeus is here now. So, Rob, why don't you ask him where he went to college? So Rob asks him, if this is Thaddeus Stevens, we need to confirm. Can you tell us where you went to college? Yeah. Dartmouth. And the three of us who knew were like, oh, my God. And Rob's like, did he just say Dartmouth? We're like, uh-huh. And Rob's like, is that where he went to college? We're like, uh-huh. He's like, oh, my God. Well, the thing about it was, this is 2:30 on like a Saturday morning. I know those things sweep radio frequencies, but what radio station in the general Gettysburg area was talking about Dartmouth College at 2:30 in the morning on a Saturday, right when we asked that question? Come on, the odds are, come on.
And that does show a good point, that it does capture things and stuff like that. It's just, for me, I just can't deal with the sounds. And because I started out with the paranormal puck and all. I had one of the first paranormal pucks that ever came out that you actually plugged into your computer, and it gives you a whole program. You can ask questions. It would make reports and log everything into files for you on the computer, and it was interesting. But it was, of course, it's got 2,148 word vocabulary, so you don't know. And Bill Chapman, he picked every word to put in there. So, So what I would do is I would be different than everybody else, because everybody else was thinking, oh, it's amazing and this and that. I would use it. I'd put my recorders up and let them run, and then whatever word came out, I would ask a question about that word that came out. And I was getting all kinds of crazy EVPs onto the recorder, and so I was really using the paranormal puck as a tool to give me more questions. Versus saying this is evidence. I said, the hell with the evidence. I said, just give me something else to ask. And man, I was doing so well with different things. So I found a different way to use it, instead of saying this is evidence, because you cannot say that that's evidence. There's no way. I don't care if you have the obelisk. I don't care what you have. You cannot say 100%. That man is picking those words to put in there. So, but take it and use it in a different way. And see what it does.
Years ago, Troy Taylor had a small historic building over in the Harper's Ferry area. They called it the Haunted Cottage. And
I've been there.
You've been okay? So you know what I'm talking about. And he was. It's now since sold, and it's not on the open for the paranormal. But what he was trying to do, nobly speaking, he was trying to create a reference center for anybody involved in the paranormal. They could reference the books he had there, or go for open discussions. It was meant to be sort of a learning center. And we talked at length. Really neat guy and a real stickler. And he was showing me all kind of evidence that I had, up to that point, I had never encountered, where you take, like I said, Chapel, and he's put those obelisks with the various words. Well, believe it or not, psychologically, we don't totally understand how the brain works. We can have influence on projecting various words coming out of that mechanical stuff. I don't know how it works. I mean, I couldn't sit there and force a certain word to come through, but we do evidently have effect on that. And they they'll run all these psychological experiments and demonstrate that. So if you want to be a real stickler, I mean, you can nitpick pretty much anything and come up with a principled action on why something happened. Now, me, I don't know. I mean, sometimes, like Dave said, in middle of the night, Dartmouth coming through. Well, to me, that's I don't know. I'm buying that. I'm feeling an energy there. And when it comes through and tells me it went to Dartmouth, that's pretty cool. I'm gullible.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you on that. And I don't like to get into what I call the paranormal mumbo jumbo of People saying, well, our brains and fluids. I've had people tell me, oh, our brains made that EVP. And I'm like, well, how did it do it when we weren't in the room and we left that recorder sitting in there and we got all these EVPs and we weren't even on the property? And so then they get real quiet and they can't answer you. So, I don't think that our brains, and we've tried, I've tried to do that with recording, sit there quietly and ask questions in my mind. Because I have had recordings where spirits read my mind, didn't say a word. I was thinking about a question, like Dave said, and in this haunted hotel, and I was just in the basement, and I was like, wow, this, in my mind, I was going, this would be a great game room for kids, because there's nothing here for kids at this hotel. And with that, that's when I got this recording, this guy saying, we ain't no children. So he read my mind.
Yeah.
But you know what? We do the same thing.
He read my mind about children. And he was assuming that I was calling him a child. And it blew my mind, because I was like, I didn't say a word. There was no question. So, so they can read your mind. They definitely can.
But we do the same thing with table tipping, and it works very well. Whenever we get someone at the table who maybe doesn't come right out and say it, but you can tell that they're thinking that we're influencing the table somehow with our hands, we'll tell them, ask a question in your head, just inside your head to yourself. And then the table will move and answer it, and you'll see the expression of the face change. And we're like, you asked a question, didn't you, in your head? Yeah. And the table got it right, didn't it? Yeah. How would we know?
And so I've never done table tipping. So do you just put your fingers on the table? Do you touch the table? I mean, I know everybody sits around it.
Right.
And so then what do you actually do?
You go on, Dave. You want to?
Well, we normally do 4 people. We've done it with less, but it's less strain on the spirit energy, and it's less strain on us. If you have at least 4 people around the table, you put, we try to tell everybody to take all jewelry, wedding rings, stuff like that off, because the person that taught Pam and Steve was a woman named Bobby Robinson from Lilydale, and she will actually be coming here for an event this year.
Nice.
But she told them to have people take off all their jewelry. There we go. Because she's seen the energy gets so high that their jewelry leaves like a burn mark on their skin. So you take the jewelry off, and then you put sandalwood on your hands. I mean, it doesn't have to be sandalwood. That's just what we use. But an oil to help the energy transfer. And then you put some on the table. Not only does that help the energy transfer, but it also makes the table a little slippery. So we can't influence it because our hands would slide. Okay. And then once everybody is on the table, ideally you want to have enough people on a size table where you can put your thumbs together like this, and then get your pinky, this one, to overlap the person next to you's pinky all the way around. So that way, if you're trying to influence a table, they can feel it. Okay. Right. And basically, I mean, we don't always do that because we don't always have enough people with big enough hands, and the table may be a little bit bigger. But whenever we can, that's how we set it up, so that we give every chance for someone to see if we're pulling their leg and influencing the table ourselves, which of course we aren't. But just
you want to have checks and balances.
Right. And then once everybody's set, it's either usually Jim or Steve will knock the energies in, and you knock on the center of the table 3 times, and then talk the spirits into the table. And once they're there, you'll feel it. That you'll feel like when your phone's on vibrate. That you'll almost feel that consistently on the top of the table. And then you start asking questions, and you decide how it goes. So you can say, tip the table for yes, don't move it for no, or spin the table for yes, don't move it for no, or slide it one way for yes and tip it for no, whatever, however you set it up. And then you ask these questions, and you let the spirits answer them by using and I hate to say this because I'm not a big proponent of Ouija boards, just because I've used them once and it scared shit out of me, and I don't know how to do them, so I choose not to use them. But it's almost basically the same thing. It's a portal for them to
it's
communicate
a conduit.
with. But at the same time, you've got to know how to close it when you're done, you know?
And
right.
You know, again, if a lot of times if a person is real emotional, we'll tell the person, you know, not to. They don't have to ask the question where anybody can hear. You know, might be a very personal thing. So, like we had just recently, this one couple was here, and the lady announced an event. She goes, you know, I'm really steeped in scientific. I said, that's great. You know, we anybody. So she had hooked up with a woman who was like actually an aunt of hers, but had been like a mother, had actually served as a mother. And it got real emotional. So I'm telling her, you know, you can ask the questions in your head. You don't have to say out loud. So what she did in her head, testing it, and of course, we knew nothing of this. This was something she decided to do, was she asked 3 questions, like boom, 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 right in a row. And basically, we're just sitting at a table, and the table's going like, boom, answer, boom, answer, boom, answer. Well, we didn't have any idea. You know, she goes, yeah, I can't explain that. You didn't know that I asked 3 questions. You know, nothing was said. We're just sitting at the table, and the thing's doing this. So she goes, yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't have a scientific explanation for that.
Right. Have you guys ever tried, I know you're just starting to do this table tipping, but I would take it one step further. And like, I love my thermal video camera. So I would set it up, and I would film you guys and film the whole scene and see if something can be captured around the table. You never know.
We actually had...
Let us take our one commercial, and then we come back and give that story about that.
Okay.
Right?
Sounds good.
We'll be right back in just a few minutes.
Awesome.
WLFE Digital Network is now on digital television. If you're into ghosts, Bigfoot, UFOs, and the creepy, then WLFE has a TV channel for you, Paranormal View. Watch all of your favorite WLFE video talk shows on one channel. Shows like Paratalk Radio, Step Into the Paranormal, Skeptical Help Bar, The Creepy Parlor, and more. Looking for something else? Do you support the LGBTQ plus community? WLFE has brought all of their LGBTQ shows like Inside the Drag Closet, Everything Yet Nothing, Across the Pond, and Rainbow Soul all into one place. A new TV channel called LGBTQ Friends. The third channel is Variety Unlimited. Here you'll find a wide variety of talk shows you know and love, like Just Cindy, Card Pulls and Coffee, Real Talk with Dom, The Bipolar DM, Meet the Author, and Movie Review 5. The best part of watching these shows is that they're all available to watch at one location, one website, WLFE-DB.com.
You are listening to WLFE-DBRadio.com, where our shows are your shows.
Listen to the WLFE-DB podcast, available on Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Check out shows like Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and Step Into the Paranormal. Now, on to your favorite podcast app.
This is Dominic Santasero with Real Talk with Dom. You are listening to WLFE-DBRadio.com, where our shows are your shows.
Hey guys and dolls, this is Casey DeVille, the better half of DeVille Inc., Baltimore, Maryland. If you're ever in Baltimore, stop in and see me and Tony. Invisible Bree, 5920 Eastern Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland, 21224. Give us a call if you're in the area, 410-400-9641, or look us up on the web at DeVilleInc.com. DeVille Inc., where we specialize in you.
Oh, yeah. Life just got sweeter now that WLFE DB has merchandise. Show your support by purchasing your t-shirts for WLFE, Paratalk Radio, Inside the Drag Closet, and more. But it doesn't stop there. T-shirts, coffee mugs, tanks, buttons, cloth bags, and more. Go to WLFE-DB.com. On the top bar, click on the merchandise tab and bam, there you go. You got merch. Support the shows. WLFE-DB.com.
You're listening to WLFE DB Radio. Now, back to our program.
And we're back. Thanks, everybody, for sticking with us. And Jim, go ahead and pick up where you left off.
Oh, flip. Yeah, we about 2-3 weeks ago, we were doing a table tipping session. There was a couple here, and the lady's husband was pretty much a skeptic. He had his thermal camera, and so he's actually recording the session. Nice. And what was really neat that struck him, if anybody was applying any pressure, like to the table or pushing, that would show up on their fingers and whatnot. Right. And my sister and my wife were both at the table at that time, and their hands from where it was on the table up to their elbows was all blue. In other words, there was no heat at all. The table was very cold. And then the other two persons at the thing were sort of neutral. So you could see, even though the table was going into its gyrations and all that, there was nothing, there was no heat signatures, for any kind of action. And yet you could see around the field of the table, there was some energy that he picked up, which is, I guess, what you're alluding to.
Yes, definitely. You're like me. I always try and think outside the box. And, if I'm doing one thing, I try and do another thing at the same time to see if we catch something off guard. That's a big thing. And, I'll set up like a full spectrum camera, and then I'll also set up right next to it, a thermal. And so I'm shooting it in both different veins,
Yeah, and then we're always open. We really gotten a lot of neat ideas from other groups. So we're going to be trying. Even the spirits have given us a few suggestions. So we're going to, like, when this was a nursing home in the 80s, there's a few spirits around from that point. And so far, it looks like they loved bingo. So in talking to the spirits, and they all signed on, they're all thrilled about this, we're going to do spirit bingo. Where
paranormal bingo.
Yes. And we actually have a couple ideas how to do this, but the intent is that we're going to have whatever spirit is with us, we're going to have that basically select certain bingo cards. And the intent is for the spirits to use their energies to influence the balls we draw. It's, a little bingo cage with the numbers.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, we're going to play bingo and just see if the cards that Spirit selected, and as we pull the balls, if they win at an inordinate rate, compared to regular. That's one idea. We actually have a couple, but they were real thrilled about the aspect of doing Spirit bingo.
Imagine you get an EVP of somebody yelling bingo. That'd be great.
That would be the coolest. And then while the table tipping, Steve will get a deck of cards, and he'll put a card on the table, and we'll ask, do you see the card? And say they signal yes. So then, Steve will say, okay, move when you have the right card. And so, he'll mention 4 or 5 cards, and when he hits the correct card, it can rip out 12 out of 12.
Wow.
It's That's not hit or miss. It's like we even have it where we have them add the numbers on the cards,
Right.
and they'll do that.
Wow, that's interesting. Do you have any? Do you have any instruments in the house? Do you have like a piano?
We don't have a piano, but I can bring an electric one in. Why? What do you?
Yeah. I've actually have captured 2 different times. I've captured piano notes at different locations, and the strangest thing is, it's a B sharp, and this was within 6 to 8 months of each other, different locations, and I got the same note, single note. Once was 5 times at one location, which was an old plantation. And then 6 months later, we went to a home that was having a lot of activity, and I recorded 55 notes in a row, one single note, B sharp. And it blew my mind because I'm like, why am I getting the same note, 2 different places, 55 times in a row? I have that as an EVP. It's crazy. So that's why. And then the first time we heard with our ears the piano notes, and we recorded it. There was no piano in the house.
Wow.
Pretty wild.
Now that you mention it, we were at the James Thurber House in Columbus, Ohio. It's maintained as a museum, and they have a children's center next door too. And we were up there with another group doing an investigation. And now that you mention it, we did pick up a piano in that place. But I'll be darned if I can remember what the note was. I wish I could now.
Yeah. Well, I play piano, so I know.
Okay.
Piano player.
Okay.
But it was, and to actually hear it that first time, we actually heard, all of us sitting there heard the notes, the 5 notes. And that was amazing.
Wow.
So interesting.
That is crazy. Did I missed the beginning? Did Dave have you talk about your new show and all that stuff?
Yes.
He did. Okay.
Do you have any questions? Yeah. It'll be out there. I sent you the copy of it
before we sign off tonight again. So.
Oh, definitely.
Anybody coming in late? Yeah, I tell you, there was a couple of amazing photographs in that presentation.
What'd you think of the thermal video?
Oh yeah, no,
Crazy.
The thing too is, my God, where do you have all that time to do all that editing and everything else?
That took me a long time. Hours and hours. I would go out there and start working, and I would just do it in files. I would do each scene as a file. And, 3 minutes would take me 4 to 6 hours.
Oh.
Now, people don't realize what it takes to go through the evidence, find it, clip it, and then piece it in. And so really that first episode was incredible. But like I said, it's only 52 minutes, but that took me over a year of finding that evidence. And then I kept finding evidence in the video clips. I kept finding more evidence that I didn't even realize I had. So it's just crazy. But I think people are really going to enjoy it.
Do you ever, and this is something, I'm not going to say it happens frequently, but it has happened where we'll be doing some kind of evidence and then you get something and you have it, and then somewhere along the line when you're processing it or whatever, it changes. Yes. Have you had that before?
Well, even EVPs, you'll go in, you'll type it out on what it is, you'll put it in a file, and then you'll go back, I don't know, a month later, and you'll go, that's not saying this, that's saying this. And it's almost like it's changed, so don't know. I don't know if it's our minds are tired. But definitely just incredible. But there's many spirits at that location. There's at least 10 or 15.
Wow.
And like I said, I started investigating in 2010. That's when we first investigated, and we've been back 11 times to do full investigations with different groups. Because I invited really good groups that I wanted to see what they would capture. And it just was amazing what we all experienced. So, really interesting.
Very well done. And I really commend you. I know the work, unfortunately, I'm already probably at a point where I keep a file and I for my Taz cam, I'll keep a master with all these various audio files, and I already know I'll never get to them all. I mean,
I know.
Not enough hours.
I have 4 computers filled to the brim, and and so it's just crazy. Yeah, I know what you're saying, but that's why I had to do the show, because I had to get away from doing regular investigations, because I was doing so many, and just it was eating up all my time. And I was like, I'm not sharing the evidence. So what's the point of capturing it, putting it on a computer if it just sits there? So and over time, I do believe that things deteriorate. EVPs break down, photos break down. So that's why I came up with the idea of doing the show, so that I could really share the crazy things that I've captured over the years.
Sure.
And that's really why I wanted to do it. It's not, I'm not a thrill seeker. I'm not into any of that. And even the way I made the series, it's not like any of these other shows that are out there. And I don't care for the shows that are out there. They're running around in the dark. They're cursing. You can't hear any of the evidence. I wanted all the evidence to be seen and heard and explained on what it was. And that's why I'm just trying to.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of most of the shows out there. The only time I find myself a lot of times watching them, or if I know the group, it's like a friend, or I know the group, or if it's a place I know I'll never get into, and just to see the place, or it's a place we're going to and I've never been there. I like to sort of, a preview, so to speak.
Yeah, it's really great, and there are a lot of great groups out there that are making their own projects, and I think that's what most people should do. Don't get involved with these production companies, because they don't care about the paranormal. They don't care about evidence. They don't care about us. So why should we give all our hard work to these production companies? They're making millions. We're making nothing, and it's not about money. But if you're going to do all the work, you should reap the rewards of what you're doing. So that's my
And that's the beauty of the way things have evolved technologically now, that we have StreamYard like this. We have these YouTubes and things like this that you can make these things, and then the software you can do. One of our things is when we do an investigation, and I don't mean just a quick 1 or 2 hour little thing at the house or something like that, but if we have a proper investigation going, if Signal allows, I want to go live, because there's people that follow us and watch our stuff, like the show tonight. And, we got a guy named Theo who we've actually investigated with. He's on vacation in Texas right now, and he's taking time out of his vacation to watch the show. That makes me feel good. So when we do an investigation, I want the people who follow us and take time out of their busy schedules to check us out. I want to bring them as close to the investigation as I can, since they're not physically there. So I try and go live on every investigation we do. And I go move, and I take different angles, and I try and get them as close as I can and make them feel like they're part of it. If we're doing an EVP session or a Phasmobox session, and one of them pops up a really good question, I'll ask it, make them feel like they're part of it,
Many times I've sat, on your investigations, and it's great, because you just like being there, and it was really awesome. So, I loved it, and I think it's a really good path to take. Feeds and stuff. I know it's hard because you lose signal a lot, but I still think it's interesting.
And all the people watch, and I give them credit for patience, because especially your location, you will lose signal. And sometimes it's not even losing signal. Sometimes spirit's fouling it up too. I've had the distinct impression of that sometimes, like spirit doesn't want, for whatever reason, doesn't want this getting out.
Yep.
Oh yeah, you never know. Or then maybe they just want to mess with you. They may just want to, be known. They want to be acknowledged. So they're like, hey, nobody's paying attention to me. Let me do something.
You traveled all over, and you've investigated some great places, some places that are very rich in history as well, obviously. What's the one place that you haven't been that you're dying to get into, not just for the paranormal aspect, but for the history of it?
There's so many places. I would love to. I would love to go to the White House and investigate there. And that's always somebody. Many people want to get in there. You'll never get in there, but so many people have had experiences. Presidents have had experiences and different things. That's one place. But ever since going to Europe, once you go over there, America's great. But I'll tell you, when you go to France or you go to London or Spain or somewhere, you're stepping back into the 12th century, and things like that. It just doesn't compare to here. The stuff in the United States is just over 200 years old.
Yeah, we're 275, so some of those places are 2,750. Like,
but some of my favorite places. I still want to go back. I'm planning to go back to England next year. I'm saving. I'm just waiting for COVID to be gone, and because I have friends that are over there, and they tell me, they're not that cleaned out yet. So, I want to travel through England. I've only been to London. I've been to Liverpool, so that was great. But I want to see the rest of the country. And these days you could do these Airbnbs, so it's really affordable. For $95 a night, you have an entire house. So that's the way to travel. That really is. Versus staying in these high-end hotels and things like that. So I would love to go to Scotland. Edinburgh. I would love to go there. That's probably one of the places I want to go. The most.
I definitely want to go to Scotland. I definitely want to go to Scotland and Ireland. And me being a Irish Mick.
Yes.
England isn't.
Well, me too. Believe it or not, even with La Chiana, I'm Irish.
Yeah. So England isn't one of those places that I'm like, yay! But there's places in England. Like I would love to get to the Tower of London, and honestly,
been there.
I would love to just sit and just do a standard EVP session. No classes, just EVP session at Stonehenge.
Oh yeah, Stonehenge. But I would love to be locked in the Tower of London at night and stay there. Because I've been there twice, and you can just feel the energy there.
We had a Bob Goutreau, is the pet psychic, lives here in Maryland. We've had him as a guest several times, and he, a couple years ago, before the COVID, was with his significant other over in England, in London, and he had, oh my gosh, the tales he was giving us. He had amazing time in the Tower of London and a couple of those other, that one castle where one of Henry VIII's wives was from prison before she was beheaded. And oh my gosh, he had the tales he was recounting that he experienced and saw, because of his unique nature being such a psychic medium. Now it was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, I was in the torture chambers of the Tower of London, and it was pretty wild. But it's so crowded because it's such a tourist site now, and so I still want to go to places that aren't that traveled. I had a really good friend that lives there, and I told her I was coming, and I said, she goes, well, where do you want to go? I said, well, let's go out for lunch or something. I said, take me to the most haunted place in London. So she said, okay, meet me at this station, and I met her, and we went over to the Viaduct Tavern, which was a gin palace back in the 1800s. And we were in there at 10 o'clock in the morning. People were drinking beers. We got ourselves some pints. The manager came over, and we were just saying what we do. And he goes, oh, would you like me to give you a tour of the place? I'll walk you around the different floors, and I'll tell you what I know. I'm like, yes, sure. And, of course, I always carry my equipment with me. So I had my recorders. I had a video camera. And at 10:30 in the morning, we're walking around. We went down the basement. That's where a lot of the prison cells were, because the prison was across the street, and this bled over into that area. I was down there. I did some recordings in one of the cells, and I captured a English lady saying, I asked, were you falsely accused? And you hear this British accent, and this woman go, murder he wouldn't let me off. And I was like, oh my. So then we went up on the third floor, which was the bordello. And I got a few ladies of the night saying some things to me. They're still there. They are still up there in that bordello. So interesting. Yeah, I loved it, especially when you go to another country and you get an EVP that's in that language, that accent.
Jim knows all about
blows
that.
Your mind. Yeah, it blows your mind.
Jim, tell him about the Mayan ruins down in Belize.
Yeah, this would have been 2002, I believe, when my friend Dr. Dave Oster and his wife were still with us. They had formed International Ghost Hunters Society. So they had organized, we had a Caribbean cruise. All had a couple select guests and presenters. And I think we had about 30 people. And so anyhow, in all of this, the one day we stopped at Belize and went out into the jungles. And they had unearthed a new Mayan village, and it had about a third of it excavated. But one of the things they had gotten was the Sun Temple, which is where they did the human sacrifices. And so, I remember we climbed up the top of the Sun Temple. We were recording with our little Panasonics or whatever back then. And we got Mayan EVPs. Of course, I couldn't tell you what they said, but we were able to track down some people who could, and they were able to explain. They could hear what they were saying, and told us. So what kind of age? It's still going on.
Yeah, like I said, they're still in their realm. They're still doing their thing. So I believe that. I think it's wild. That's why it's so good to, if you can, get out there and travel outside of the country and go investigate, because then you're opening up new avenues of things that you wouldn't have experienced here in the States.
Now in Gettysburg, they had in the day, they had a rather large Germanic population group, and so we at the Thaddeus Stevens house before, we picked up the spirits. They were talking in German, and you could translate it. It was that clear. And a lot of it was religion. And of course, they had their Church of the Brethren, and they were all, most of that stuff traces back to German origin. But we picked that up in Gettysburg before and could actually translate it. Yeah.
Gettysburg is an amazing place. It's not just the Civil War; it's the history of the people and everything too. So, I love. I think I've been there 7 times now, and love every time I go. I just love it. Like there's nights that if I'm going up for an event, I'll go like a day before, and say it's Friday, I'll go up Thursday night, and so that I could go to Zach's Bridge when there's nobody there. And I've stood on that bridge many times with nobody. Dead center of the bridge, 11 o'clock at night on a Thursday. And I witnessed somebody walking right towards me. I heard the foot. There is an apparition called Brownie. Have you ever heard of Brownie?
I don't recall, no.
If you go down, the little path that goes down to the falls area, the little path to the right of the bridge. About halfway down, I was walking, and somebody was behind me. One of my friends was behind me. They were taking a picture with a flash, and just as the flash went off, right here, within this close to my face, I didn't see a face, but I saw a figure covered in burlap, old burlap. And he was 5'2". I'll never forget it. And it sucked the wind right out of me because I wasn't expecting this thing to be that close to me. Within that flash, I saw it. I was like, they're like, what's the matter? I'm like, oh my God, I just saw this person right in front of me. So I was telling Kendra about it, and she goes, oh, you saw Brownie. And I said, oh, you've seen him? She goes, I've seen him. I've seen Brownie too. I said, okay. I said, wow, nice. Somebody confirm it. But interesting. I love Gettysburg when there's not a lot of people around. That's my favorite. way to be around Gettysburg.
My wife and I, one time, we were over at, I was showing her Sachs Bridge. We were just over there, messing around one evening. We'd gone out to eat. And, it's just at around dusk, things are going, but there's still ample light. And we were on the bridge, and we had walked across, and we're starting to come back. And there came on the bridge a couple, and they were dressed in period dress, which is not unusual because you've always got, somebody, reenactors and everything working. Yeah. So we approached them, and as we're walking, we sort of walked to the right of him, and I nodded my head, and the guy nodded his head. We didn't say nothing. And they're going to the far side. And when I got to the end, I turn around, and they're gone. Wow. And I'm like, what the hell? And I'm looking, and they weren't on the trail. And I'm like, and I go running back across the bridge, and I'm looking underneath, I'm like, they're gone. And I told my wife, I said, what the hell? And there was no cars there.
Yeah. And what did she think about that?
Yeah, they looked solid and real, I mean, there wasn't anything ethereal about them.
Right.
And I couldn't swear that they were spirit, but I don't know where the hell they went. It was an older couple like ourselves, so we're not running track and field.
No.
And, that happened.
Really interesting. Go ahead. The fellow I'm going to bring up to the bash, his name is James, and he's a reenactor. And he's been to Gettysburg many times, and he's done it for years. And they were over at Zach's Bridge, and they were actually camping on the field that's over there to the side. And they were in their garb, and they were walking along, and all of a sudden 3 other soldiers walked by them the other way, and they all tipped their hats at each other. And with that, James said, man, their uniforms look really authentic, So he said, I'm going to go talk to them. He turned around, and they were gone. 3 of them gone. And that was in the middle of the field. So when you meet James, he can tell you that story better. And but he's a paranormalist too. But I find it really interesting when you have the reenactors experience things, especially the ones that aren't ghost hunters and they experience things. That's really neat because that's genuine. That's genuine experience.
Well, I'm not a reenactor, but I've heard this before. Where, in other words, there's a bit of set patterns. When they're out there and their lines and whatnot, you sort of know who's to your side and the organization. And I remember talking to some reenactors in the past there, where they're setting up their lines, and there's some guys to the right. And they're not to be there. You know what I mean? Like this one guy, I'm the end of the line. And there's some guys setting up to his side. And he goes to tell them, hey, guys, I think you're in the wrong place. And they look at him and they just disappear. And
wow. That's amazing. Yeah.
I know.
That's amazing. It never gets old. It never gets old.
Now, I got a question for you, Mike. Of all the places that you've been and investigated, history-wise, which one has, I guess, the oldest tales? Like, you go there and they tell you of these reports of activity, but which place had activity reports that dated to events that happened farthest back?
Oh, good question. Well, I actually did investigate when I went down the catacombs in Paris.
Oh, wow.
And I studied a lot on the different people's experiences and things like that. I said, let me start with 6 million people and see what happens. And I actually was down there. I did some recordings, and I brought my video camera, and I did catch something flying by. And I can't be certain if it was a bug or something. It didn't look like a bug. But the history of the catacombs is so amazing to me because it was actually built as a tourist attraction in the 1800s, late 1800s. And because they had all these bodies we have all these canal ways and things like that. And they actually designed it so that they took all these bones and they did it like artwork. So when you go down, it's not just a bunch of piles. I mean, it's all done in like different artwork. And it's fascinating to see skulls and bones and things surrounding you. So I think that was one of my most favorite places to go. And historically, too.
They're real human remains, though, correct?
Oh, yeah, they're real. They're real. There's over 6 million bones. There's almost 7 million bones.
I have heard, I don't know if it's true, that they actually search you and make sure that, nobody leaves with any bones. Is that true?
No. All I know is the security there is very strict. And if you even touch a bone, they will throw you right out. They will take you and they will drag you out of there. So they tell you, and then, French people don't mess around. They tell you, don't touch anything, go down, and they have people watching, and they have cameras too. I've never even thought about it. It's just so fascinating to be down there.
Sure.
And you could go down there. It opens at 8 in the morning, and I think it closes at 5. You can go down there and you can stay there till 5 o'clock if you wanted to. And they only open up certain sections, so you can't wander everywhere. It's gated off, and they rotate the tour here and there, but it was fascinating. But yeah, I definitely want to go back to England more. In the United States, there's so many places. Like, I'm set to go after this next season, when I get all these other 4 episodes done. I'm going to go to Ellis Island, and I'm fascinated with Ellis Island, and I'm going to the old hospital that's abandoned there now, and you are allowed to go in there. And they give you the ear headphones, and you can take your self-guided tour. And so I'm just fascinated with it, and I want to see if I can capture it. The one thing about my episodes is I will not put out an episode unless it has really good evidence. So that's important to me, is that I want to do the history, but I want to have really great evidence to back up the series before I put out an episode. So that's one place. And also want to do the first bar or first tavern in New York City, which is there's 2 that are fighting for that spot, saying they're the oldest. So I definitely want to do that. I want to do New York City. And I am planning to go. I'm set to go to the Queen Mary in California, but I'm waiting for that to reopen. They're having a lot of problems. I have a friend that's a radio host out of California, and she's also an author. She's written about 6 books on the Queen Mary, and she's so versed in all the paranormal activity there. So I invited her to come when I go, and for her to come on the ship with me. So so California, and I definitely want to do Haunted Hollywood. I'm fascinated about. I don't care about nowadays Hollywood, but the old Hollywood of yesteryear is what I'm interested in.
Roosevelt Hotel.
And I want to stay at the Roosevelt Hotel. Supposedly Marilyn Monroe still wanders around and things like that. But it would be interesting to stay there.
From Here to Eternity, you can still hear him walking halls playing his bugle.
Right. Now, I definitely want to do that as a series too, an episode. So
I don't know if I'll ever make it out to California, but if I did, I think the first place I got to go. Well, there's a couple places. The first place is going to be Alcatraz.
Yeah.
The second place is Cielo Drive.
Yes.
And then the third place, I'd probably check out like Lake Berryessa, some of the places where there were victims from the Zodiac.
Right.
That case fascinates me. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because he was never caught that we know of, but that fascinates me.
Well, and my background was criminal justice. I was going to school for criminal justice, and I was going to be a New York City police officer. I took all the tests for it and things. So when I was doing that, I wanted to study all the serial killers. So I started buying books and reading every serial killer and their life story, because I really wanted to know what made them tick. If I was going to be a police officer, I wanted to know what I might be dealing with. Thank God I didn't go into it. I'm glad I didn't go into law enforcement. The plumbing pays a lot better than the police officer. I don't have to worry about getting shot. So, but my family's large. We have about 8 people in the family that are police officers and detectives. So, they're all retired now, but it's fascinating. And so New York is my next trip, and then California is definitely here in the States. So yeah, I would like to go out to some of the ghost towns out in California.
Well, it's funny you say that.
Bodie, California.
It's funny you say that, Mike, because when I graduated my class from mechatronics, one of my graduation presents was Jim said he was going to take me out to see Janet in her neck of the woods in like Carson City. And we're going to go out there to all the old ghost towns, and they want to hit the Donner Pass, the old Goldfield Hotel, and all those things out there. So maybe we can set it when obviously we got to wait for all that stuff to open up fully. I'm not flying on a plane if I got to. So when everything opens up and we can get out there, maybe we can set it up where you can meet us out there or something.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm fascinated. I love the Old West, just as part of the history, things like that. Now, I've had some friends go to the Birdcage Theater, and they didn't get a lot of activity, and they were very disappointed. So that's you have to that's expensive to get there and travel, and then you have to pay those fees. So
now, when I was at Carson City with Janet, she took me out with a couple psychic mediums, and there's a Stewart Indian school out there, one of many of those. And the history, that really opened my eyes. I had not been knowledgeable about that portion of our history. And oh my gosh, the energies were just crazy. I mean, they took me. I'll never forget it. It even to this day, the feelings on that were just almost indescribable. There was a field, big open field, and evidently that's where they buried the children, and they were unmarked graves. And over the years, there's hundreds, if not thousands, buried in this open field. And we get on this field, and that evening, it was about 85, a pleasant evening, no rain, cloudless sky. And that field, there was a 20-degree temperature inversion right on that field. And literally, you could see like the mists coming up, and they're snapping pictures, Janet and this other psychic medium. And oh my gosh, it was all the kids coming out. And I
believe it.
I didn't get much in the way of EVPs or that, but just being there and feeling that and the energies it was almost overwhelming. It was something. And then I know the Booth brothers have done some work on these Indian schools as well, and captured some amazing stuff. So that
I watched one of their documentaries. They're great. Really
so I'd love to get back. I'd love to get back to one of those Indian schools, and especially now with a little better equipment, and my own sensitivities have improved a lot. But that just struck a real chord to me.
And see, that's the type of things I like. Versus, I'm not one that likes to go to what I call paranormal tourist spots. I'm not big on Waverly Hill and all these other famous places that everybody goes to. This just doesn't interest me as much. I like the history of it, but I don't want to go where a place is overrun. And just, like the Battleship North Carolina here in North Carolina, I've rented that 4 separate times. And when I rented it, I would only bring 12 people on it. So we had the entire ship to ourselves.
Wow.
And we would get activity here and there. It was very interesting. But the place is open 7 days a week, and there's people on that boat 7 days a week. So I just feel that the activity is like hammered over time. So it's interesting, and it is amazing to be able to rent. For a nominal fee, you have that entire ship for the night for yourself.
Don't the Boy Scouts, or they used to rent it and camp out on it, don't they?
Yeah, I think a lot of them do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I've gone to some events on there where they had 200 people. It was a Friday the 13th event where they brought all the cast members from Friday the 13th movie on to this, and they were doing a whole paranormal thing. And they had the celebrities. They had Joe Chen and some other folks, and they're really nice to meet and work with. But you had 200 people on that ship. So, like, how are you going to capture anything? So it was, me going from having 12 people, and I rented the ship several times, and having the place, and then going here, I was invited, so it was nice that they invited me to be there with 200 people. I was like, this is insane. I said, can't do anything here.
So,
well, they when they had the from 9/11 where the plane went down up in the pitch, up in I remember we were up there before they had a formal memorial building and all that. They were just having like makeshift memorials, and you couldn't go down to where the plane had actually crashed. That was reserved just for family members of the victims. But they had that makeshift. It was a parking lot is all it was, with some gravel, and they had a little mobile unit up there. And just people would bring various remembrances and that. Yeah. So, and it was so crowded, like there's no point in trying to do nothing there. But I talked to some of the security people. Like I'd get there as they're getting off for the night, like from the night shift in the morning. And I'm talking to some of them, and it was really interesting. The one, I'll never forget, he said he got in his car, and it's parked there. He got in his car, and as he's started up heading, he hears a voice, and he looks in his rearview mirror, and there was a guy in his back seat, and he's going like, "What do we do now?" Oh, wow. And I'm like, and I talked to a number of security people, and as they came off, so even though
from here, stuff like that.
Yeah, that site was probably I don't know 4 or 5 football fields from where the actual plane hit the field, but because of I guess the makeshift memorial that was occurring, some spirits were getting drawn there, and there was just some wild stuff.
That's like ground zero. I went to ground zero 2 weeks after it happened, after 9/11, and it was I mean, there were people you're walking side by side with people. Everybody was just packed in. But the wild thing that blew my mind was, I can't tell you, thousands of people standing there. You could hear a pin drop. I mean, there was nobody talking. There was nobody saying anything. People were just like, just like so upset, and even me. And I have a lot of friends that actually sifted through all the debris and had to, reclaim body parts and things like that. And they told me experiences they had. Even when they were carting all the debris over to, I think it was Staten Island or somewhere, to go through all of it, they kept seeing a woman, a nurse that was a Red Cross nurse from like 1912. She was there, and they would witness her, and then they'd look back and she'd be gone. So that's amazing. It's actually a book. A former police officer wrote a book, and he was the one that kept seeing her, and very interesting. But I plan to go back to Ground Zero, to the monument area, and because it's very active. People do see things and experience things there. So
we went to Jim and I and Haley went to an investigation. I think it was when we were coming back from the Harrison house. I think we stopped off at Shanksville, and Jim sat in the car, and Haley and I got out. And for some reason, I don't know why, but when we left to go out to Ohio for that investigation, some told me to wear my dog tags, so I did. And when we came back, we decided to stop at Shanksville, and I've even last week it was Richard Rulin and Katie Turner, And Richard's like, you need to stop selling yourself short. You have a lot of abilities. You just don't know it yet. Okay.
Yeah.
But I was the sadness and the heartbreak of that place, just standing there looking at an empty field, and there's a giant, and I mean giant, this thing's got to be 6 tons if it's a pound, giant rock, and they had it moved and put right on the spot where the plane actually hit. And standing there and looking from 120 yards away at this giant rock, Haley and I, we both lost it. I mean, we were just in absolute tears. And people would like come up and like, did you have someone on the plane? We're like, no, we didn't. We didn't know any of these people. But we can feel them, you know? So it's a very somber place.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. Even Ground Zero, same thing. And we did lose a few people that were high school friends and people that were police officers and firemen. So it's crazy. Just crazy.
Jim's cousin was almost in the tower.
Yeah, he's in the world banking community with international finance, and he actually had a meeting like I think 9 that morning in one of the towers. But last second, I mean, he's getting ready. He lives in Jersey, just goes. And the last second, he gets a phone call, and they had canceled it for whatever reason. Wow. So he didn't have to go in that day. And as it turned out, their building where their offices were was like a block and a half away. And actually, one of the landing gears from one of the planes actually took out the floor where he had some of his workmates on that floor. They lost several. They were a block and a half away because the landing gear took all that out. So we had gone back with him a couple years ago. First time he'd gone back, with once they had the lake and all that stuff going, and it was real emotional. It really was. We just went there for support because he had lost a lot of people he knew.
My wife worked in the Twin Towers, and if we didn't move, she would have been in the Twin Towers that day.
Wow.
The second plane that hit on the 72nd floor took out her entire company. That was Cantor Fitzgerald, and that killed everybody. And if she was there, she would have gone too. But she had nightmares for 6 months because her job there as an executive secretary was to do a fire drill list. And she would have to always go through all the names. And she was having nightmares because she was putting herself there and going through the list of people's names, during the explosion. Just crazy times. So, just insane. And for anybody that doesn't support and remember that stuff, they don't have much remorse for humans.
No.
People forget. A lot of these different generations forget and don't. We were the closest we could be when that happened. Americans came together like never before. Yep. And now what happened? What happened? Now we're all hating each other. We're fighting each other. We're killing each other. It's sad. I mean, so.
Yeah.
Well, you'll be able to see at the bash. Steve has a new tribute car, and it's his Mustang, and it's a 911 tribute Mustang.
Yeah, they're really
beautiful.
He is doing the paint job on it as we speak, and it's basically like a $40,000 paint job that he's putting on this thing.
Wow.
To remember 9/11. So you'll be able to see that at the back. That's going to be an amazing thing. So.
Yeah. That's what I love about the bash. It's all about paranormal, but it's also has so many different facets to it. You know, with the Wounded Warriors and just bringing everybody together. And that's what I really like. I mean, I love Batman. He's awesome. He's an awesome guy.
And I got to tell you, I don't think you were there for this one, but the year that they had Connor there, little Connor, who was on the tribute car, and they had McKenna. They had McKenna there as well, and they were doing laps in the showroom area where we had all the tables. And at one point,
I wasn't there for that one.
Yeah, McKenna started to slow down, And John Buckland, who was the West Virginia Batman, went back to her. He's like, "Are you okay? Do you need me to carry you?" And she's like, "No, I got this." And she took off and finished it. And you know,
that's
everybody, every person.
How is she doing?
Clapping.
I haven't checked in in a long time. How are they doing? I mean, how is she doing? Is she still?
I think, as a matter of fact, I think McKenna's in remission, I believe. Which
that's beautiful. Yeah, I'm very close with Stephanie and her. You know, the David Stewart Farm. I've stayed there several times and I've investigated there. I actually got one of the best EVPs in the upstairs of that house where the OR was. I have it's about a 35-second EVP of two soldiers talking to me. Oh, it's wild. And as I walk in the room, you got to hear it. I'm walking in the room, I have boots on, and it proved they couldn't see me and I couldn't see them because they were saying, somebody's coming in the room. Somebody's coming in the room. And then the next thing out of the guy's mouth, he goes, "Don't mess with me. Don't mess with me." And then the other guy says to the other guy, he goes, "It's the incubator." It's the incubator. And then he says to the other guy, "So what's the plan now?" And you hear this voice fade out. It's the most incredible EVP. It's two spirits talking to me, and they sound terrified. It's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy.
Unfortunately, we lost Connor the following year.
So I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was very sad. We actually, Jim and I and Haley were on investigation down in the cabin at 360 the weekend of his celebration of life. And Jim hadn't come down yet. Haley and I had gone down the night before to set some things up. And then her and I drove back up to Littlestown from cabin 360 down to the boonies of Virginia, drove back up to Littlestown, met Jim and Pam and Steve, and went to Connor's celebration of life, and then drove back down to finish the investigation. So,
wow.
That little boy, I got to tell you, in my 47 plus years of life, I have yet to see someone that young with that kind of strength of character that he had. You know, knowing he's in the situation he was, knowing he's probably not going to survive, and being offered a ride in the Batmobile, his favorite superhero, and initially turning it down because there wasn't room for his little brother. That speaks volumes of that boy's character, you know? And I can only hope that some adults can learn from that.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for coming on tonight. It's always great to see you.
Thank you so much.
Really look forward to seeing you. Give the people again, run through where they might be able to catch your new series and stuff.
Yes, it's called Journey Through the Past, and it'll be on Amazon Prime TV probably in the next few weeks. And you'll also be able to, you can go on Facebook and you could join the page for Journey Through the Past, and you can catch all the updates and different things that are on there. So definitely check out the pages. I encourage
everybody, if you want to see somebody with number one evidence, I mean, it's really been filtered and checked and everything else. None of this creative juices kind of stuff, you know.
No, it's all 100% real.
Yep. Yeah. Well, listen,
thanks again, guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
Stay healthy, and thanks for coming on. And look forward to seeing you soon.
We'll see you in about
can't wait.
40 days.
Yes, sure will. We'll see you at the bash, and much success with the show.
Thank you, sir. You too.
Have a good night, Mike.
Good night. And thanks to everybody for tuning in tonight. I really, Mike's a guy I really respect his work, and very dedicated, high integrity, real top drawer. So I want to thank him for being gracious enough to come and share a little time with us tonight. And thank you to all our listeners and stuff. And we have next week is a roundtable.
Yep.
We've got the 5 of us, Cisco and we'll stay posted. We'll list everybody on, but next week is a round table.
It's Brian Bowden.
Brian and Steve Stockton. Steve Stockton.
So Cisco, Brian Bowden, Steve Stockton, and yours truly, Jim, and myself, doing a paranormal roundtable discussion next week. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and taking some time out of your night.
If you have questions you'd like us to address, please message us or send it through on our Facebook page, and we'll be glad to bring up the questions, or just ask them while we're having the show.
And
good night, everyone.
Good night. Have a safe weekend.
Thank you for joining Dave and Jim on Doorway to the Dead. Catch us next week right here at 8 p.m. every Thursday as we open the door to paranormal discussion and more.